Feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of being a single parent? You are not alone. Welcome to Single Parent Reset, the podcast that helps you navigate the ups and downs of single parenthood and find the balance that you deserve. Whether you're a single parent, co-parent or solo parent, this is the show for you. I'm Orla and I'm a life coach for single parents and a single parent myself. I know how hard it can be, but I believe every single parent has the strength to create a life that they are proud of. For more information about me and the work that I do, please visit my website solascoaching.com. That is SOLAS coaching.com. In each episode of this podcast, we'll be shining a light on the unique struggles single parents face and cover the aspects of being a single parent that are often overlooked and left unspoken. I'll be sharing actionable steps to help you overcome these challenges and find more calm and fulfillment in your life. Single Parent Reset is your weekly opportunity to gain a fresh perspective, take back control, and feel more in charge of your journey. Can I just say a huge thank you for all the support that I've been getting for this podcast? It really means so much to me. And I have one favour to ask. If you're enjoying it, which I'm sure you are if you're listening, can you please go to wherever you're listening to this and rate, review and subscribe to it, because it really, really helps other single parents find this podcast and get the benefit from it as well. Moving on to today's episode, where we are going to focus on the one shift that is absolutely essential for any single parent in a co-parenting relationship, and that is learning to focus on what you can control. This isn't going to be about fixing your co-parent or finding the perfect formula for co-parenting, because every situation is different. This is about helping you find more calm and stability no matter what's happening on the other side. If you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed or constantly thrown off course, this one mindset shift can really change everything. There's just no two ways about it. Entering into a co-parenting relationship can be a challenge for even the most level-headed of people. Unlike most breakups, you don't have the luxury of going your separate ways or having the choice if you want to remain friends. No, unfortunately for many single parents, no matter how dramatic or hurtful the relationship may have been, you are now facing a lifelong tie to this person through your children, and you have to set up and agree a new way of parenting together. This can feel like an impossible task for many, but I'm going to talk through today the one mindset shift that you can take immediately to help you bring some peace into your co-parenting situation, no matter how rocky and unstable it may be. Now, if you've been in a co-parenting trenches for a while, you know how easy it is to get caught up in what the other person is or isn't doing. Maybe they're turned up late, they're not communicating how they're supposed to, or they're not following through on things. They make promises that they don't keep, or maybe they just don't show up the way that your child and you need them to. And it's in these moments that it's so natural to want to change them, to fight back, to demand or to control. But this is what I want you to know. You cannot control your co-parents, not their behaviour, not their parenting style, and not how they respond or even how they show up. And trying to control what you can't control, that is just a fast track to burnout, resentment and feeling utterly powerless. It was back in early 2021 when I separated from my son's dad, just when the country was in the depths of the second lockdown. My son at the time was only 22 months old and the parenting was still very much a hands-on job. His days were pretty structured with meal times, nap times and having a set bedtime routine. And suddenly, I went from having full eyes across what was going on with my son pretty much every second of the day, to having days at a time not knowing if my son had eaten all of his lunch, or did he go down okay for his nap, was he upset at nursery handover? And this is where I was faced with a dilemma. All those details that I would have been privy to were now a phone call or a message away, and through someone that I was trying my best to build up a healthy boundary relationship with, and I did not want to be speaking to 3 or 4 times a day about how my son was getting on with his routine. So did I ignore my own need to move on and heal, or did I lean into my maternal pull to check in on my son every few hours? Now, I'm not going to say that this was the easiest thing in the world and I got it right on the first day, but eventually I realised that spending those evenings where I didn't have my son worrying about how he was getting on was not getting me anywhere. And what I was actually doing was focusing on something that was completely out of my control. I realised in order for me to move on with my life into this new chapter of single parenthood, I did not want to be messaging my co parents several times throughout the day. And if that was the case, then I would not have access to the minute details of my son's life whilst he was in his dad's house, and that I had to accept that. I learned to not overthink what was going on with my son whilst he was at his dad's, as no matter how much I would have wanted to, I had no control over it. I knew my son was in a safe environment with his dad, and beyond that, there was not much more that I had input in. Once I started to accept this and stop spending all my time and energy being frustrated and angry or worrying about my son, I could use that energy to focus on all that I could control. And trust me, that is a lot. I will talk you through today on how to understand, first of all, what you can and can't control in your co-parenting relationship, and how to let go of what you can't, and how to take action on the areas where you can't control. Because once you can take this shift of knowing what is in and out of your control, you will find so much more peace in your head, and you will feel like you're finally moving forwards and not stuck in a situation that feels impossible. I want to be very clear before we move any further. Everyone's co-parenting dynamic is different, and today's episode is not about fixing your co-parent or telling you the best way to co-parent with another person. This episode is about you, no matter what your co-parenting dynamic, and for you to be able to do what you need to do to find a sense of calm and strength to move forward in your co-parent relationship, regardless of the circumstances. And also, if you are in a co-parenting relationship that feels emotionally abusive or manipulative, know that what is in your control may be a lot narrower. And in those cases, please seek the support from professionals. It is not only okay, it is absolutely necessary for you to do this. So, how do you make this shift and start to let go of and accept all that you can't control in your co-parenting dynamic and focus on making positive actions in all that you can control? Right now, you may feel like you have been ploughing all your energy into a co-parenting relationship and feel like you are just moving no further forward. Or maybe you're in a cycle of everything running smoothly for a few months until one incident or situation can throw everything off course and make you feel like you're back at square one again. Well, the first step you need to make in shifting to focusing on what you can control is understanding what is actually in your control. I want you to think of a certain situation with your co-parents that you feel like you are constantly going back and forth on, and you feel like you are just not being listened to. Once you have this in your mind, I want you to identify for this situation all the things that are in your control, all the things that are out of your control, and finally, and this is where things can get interesting and the sense of what is in and out of control can get a little bit blurred for single parents. I want you to write down all the things that are in your influence. So what you may be able to influence, but ultimately you cannot decide. You might even find it easier to grab a pen and paper and write down a particular issue and put 3 columns across the page with the headings. And the headings being what's in your control, what's not in your control, what you can influence but not decide. I'm going to talk through an example to help bring this to life. So a recent example for me is that my son started watching TV in the mornings at the weekends at his dad's house. And this is something I really was against, as I did not want him starting the day watching TV. So looking at the 3 columns, 1, what was in my control? What was in my control was to speak to his dad and get an understanding from him why he started allowing my son to watch TV in the morning, and therefore gain a better understanding of the situation. I could also continue to not allow my son to watch TV in the mornings whilst he was at my house at the weekends. Looking at what was actually not in my control, well, what wasn't in my control was demanding my son does not watch TV when he is at his dad's house. Whilst my son is at his dad's house, I ultimately, again, like I said, unless it is a safety risk, have no control over the parenting choices my son's dad makes. And finally, what could I influence but ultimately not decide? Well, I could explain my reasoning and concerns around my son watching TV in the mornings, but that was as far as my influence could go. I did not have the final decision, and I had to be very clear on that in my head before trying to influence. A lot of the time, we as co-parents can get extremely frustrated when we voice our opinions in an attempt to influence, but cannot accept we do not have the final say on the decision. This part is out of our control. When you try to influence, think of it like planting a seed. You don't have control whether it grows, but your job is to communicate clearly, respectfully, and then release attachment from the outcome. Each time you are faced with something that is causing tension or unwelcome feelings related to co-parenting, go through this exercise and get very clear on what parts of the situation you can control, what is out of your control, and what you can influence. But remember, this is merely influence, you cannot decide. Getting into the habit of doing this can help you to start being more proactive on what you can do rather than being absolutely frustrated when your efforts seem to fall on deaf ears. Once you are clear of what is in fact not in your control, but you are finding that you are having a hard time letting go of this and still want to desperately have full hold of the reins, we are now going to look at the strategies to help you let go and accept what is not in your control. And first of all, I want to say that it is okay to find this challenging, because when it comes to our children, of course, we can become highly emotionally charged. Be kind to yourself in this process and remind yourself, by learning to let go, you are not completely putting your head in the sand and ignoring your reality. What you're doing is you are simply shifting to a place of acceptance, and from there you can have more free space to move forward. Letting go might even feel like you're giving up a part of your identity as a parent, and that's okay too. This is a form of grief and it deserves space. But remember, letting go of control is not the same as letting go of your love, your care, or your influence. I want you to really give yourself the permission to stop railing against what is out of your control and look at all that is in your control, which we will go through later on, and trust me, it is a lot. So to help you start shifting away from what we can't control, let's look at what is actually costing you. Think of an area of your co-parenting where you may be trying to control, but it's just not working. And I want you to think about this. What's the cost of holding on to this? It could be that you are finding you're not sleeping at night, you're overthinking, you're getting frustrated, you're snapping. The cost of holding on to this control can actually be very detrimental. And recognizing this can be very useful in helping you shifting away from trying to control. Another question is, if you let go of this, what space does it create for you in your life? If again, you're finding that you're overthinking constantly, maybe once you let go of the control, you'll have so much space to focus on other things that are in your control and create nicer things for you to be thinking about, rather than going round and round in circles and feeling like you're banging your head against a brick wall. Another question is, what part of this is about control and what part is about care? Sometimes we can let our parenting instincts blind our vision and perspective, and that's okay. It's completely normal. It's starting to recognize when you're doing this is what is key. And a fantastic question to help you shift away from focusing on what you can't control is, are you holding this because you need to, or because you're used to it? This can be especially relevant if you're new to co-parenting, or maybe as your childcare shifts towards more 50-50 split, you may find it hard to let go as the other parent steps in more. And for you, it may be that you're fully aware of what is not in your control, but you just really are struggling to accept it. I've done a whole episode on acceptance for single parents and the power of it, and I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. But I'm just going to quickly talk through what are the common mental roadblocks to acceptance that can hold us back. And these are your emotional barriers. You could still be holding on to feelings of anger, blame, resentment, and they can keep you stuck in the past. There could be mental barriers. You could be finding that you're just overthinking, catastrophizing, or feeling like you failed, and this can stop you from moving forward. And then there are the control barriers themselves. Sometimes it can feel like everything is out of control, and we hold on to the things we can't change because it feels like that keeps a sense of control. But in reality, it's when you let go that you get true power. Like I said, the episode is called The Power of Acceptance for Single Parents, and I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode to further understand how you can move from not accepting things to a point of acceptance. So we've been through how to help you break down your problems into what you can control and what you can't control, and then how to let go of and accept of all that you can't control. Now let's look at embracing and making the most of all that you can't control. The first point I want to make here is, whilst we know that you can't control other people's actions or reactions, you can control how you respond. This can be such a powerful shift once it lands for you. No matter what happens or how people act, you always, and I mean always, have a choice, and that is how you respond. Now, when it comes to co-parenting, my one bit of advice here is that if you feel your emotions are heightened in any way, wait before you are in a calmer mindset before responding. And the choice in how you respond into a situation, they are endless, the choices. You can not respond at all. You can make a change to your own behaviours. You can readjust your boundaries. You can seek outside support, shift your mindset, manage your expectations, not of them, but of yourself. The list really does go on and on. But make sure you are responding in a way that is truly in line with your values, and you will not regret it later. And if you are really struggling with communicating with your co-parent, I've also done an episode all about co-parenting communication. This one's called Co-Parenting Made Easier, Effective Communication Strategies. And again, I highly recommend you go and listen to this one if communication between your co-parent is a struggle at the moment. Another thing that is in your control is all the time that you do have with your children and how you spend that and the home that you create together. You can choose what routine you have. You can choose to start making happy memories, what new traditions you want to have. All that time with your children, that is fully in your control for you to spend how you want. So be intentional about it. How are you spending it? Are you focusing on what you want to focus on? Are you creating the memories you want to create? This is my favourite thing to remind others about that is in your control when it comes to co-parenting, because so often we can lose sight of everything that we can't do all the time we don't have our children. But actually, we have so much time with our children, and when we do have that time with them, it's one-on-one time, and that time is precious. So make sure you're making the most of that time and making it time that is filled with happy memories that you're creating together, not one where you're dwelling on everything you don't have. And one final thing I want to say here is, you may have made this shift into realising how much of your headspace is freed up by not overthinking all that is happening with your children when they're at the other parent's house. However, you might be faced with one final hurdle, and that could be the curiosity from friends and family. They may, out of pure interest, ask questions like, I wonder, does any partner do bedtime? Or pass comment on your children's clothes that they're wearing when they arrive home from their co-parents. And yes, these comments do happen, and they can be incredibly frustrating when you've spent so much work focusing on all that you can control and not focusing on these things that are completely out of your control. But what you can do here is, I want you to remember, is you can calmly and clearly say that these conversations are not helpful to be around you. And remember that you are the one who is in the day-to-day, and people do not see the true reality of what it is to be in a co-parent relationship, unless maybe they've lived it themselves, and even then, everyone's situation is different. So yes, there will be comments from others who are one step removed from your situation, but it is fully in your control to calmly and clearly communicate how those conversations are not useful for you in your healing journey. Co-parenting most certainly has its ups and downs, but I'm hoping with this one shift that we talked through today, learning how to understand what is in and out of your control, accepting and letting go of what isn't, and embracing all that is in your control, you can start to free up more space for yourself and enjoy your unique family dynamic just a bit more. You are not completely powerless in your co-parenting relationship. And even when things feel messy, remember your peace is not dependent on their behaviour. It always starts with you. What is one way you can shift your energy towards what you can control this week in your co-parenting? Please let me know and share it with me on Instagram. I love hearing your stories. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Single Parent Reset. You have taken 15 minutes out of your day to do something for you, and that alone is a step in the right direction towards living a life you deserve. If you're interested in working with me one-to-one, please go to my website, solacecoaching.com, for further details. And don't forget to follow my Instagram page @solacecoaching for more insightful content on living a life to be proud of as a single parent. As always, if you find this episode useful, please share with your friends and family. Remember, many single parents may seem like they have it all together, but this could be exactly what they need to help them move forward today.